Okay, so there's a lot of people talking about survival kit items, everyday EDC stuff and all that. Kind of want to rename their pistol as a life-saving device and all that. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about another type of semi-automatic that you can get on government surplus these days off eBay, which is actually a life-saving device. This is a fire department surplus from, I guess, someplace back east. But a guy had them for a fair deal on eBay. Kind of friend and I discussed this and thought, this is kind of appropriate to have around. What this is basically a jump start device for people. Okay, it's a jumper box for people. These had previously been a hospital item, and then by the mid to late 1980s, you started to see these in most ambulances. Nowadays, you're pretty much going to see it in most emergency services vehicles. In fact, you're going to see these in a lot of police cars now. They'll either be in a bag or a box like this. Most of the time, if it's in an emergency services vehicle, it's in a box. If it's in a building, there's little wall mount units. We can kind of show those later on. Models change, but the Phillips Heart Start in the Lateral are pretty much common models. The way these machines work, and I don't want to get into trying to make an instructional video on this, because if I leave something out or do something wrong, it could be really wrong. So I don't want to turn this into an instructional video. You can look those up on YouTube. I'm mainly talking about the wisdom and responsibility of owning one of these devices. It's an electronic device. You want to keep it reasonably well protected. I was able to get one with this Pelican case. You could probably do other types of cases. My original intent was this to go in some sort of a first aid kit bag or something like that, but then I realized that that still can put the machine at risk. This doesn't have the machine at risk. This can get bounced around. It's a Pelican case. It's pretty durable. The way these machines usually work is you're going to have some pads. Now these are kind of a one-time use only. You might be able to get away with using them more than once, but generally speaking, to reload this machine once it's been used to jumpstart somebody, you're going to spend a couple $100. You're going to spend some money on a pad kit. There's an expiration date on them. My personal opinion, having spares that are a little past date is not a bad thing. Okay. Then there's a battery. It's a lithium-ion battery. Now, maybe somebody's going to have some slick ways of figuring out how to hack these batteries, but there's a lifespan on the batteries too, and they're kind of tricky to test. There's going to be some hacker-type dudes that post videos on YouTube to test them. A lot of computerized stuff in here, so when you stick a battery in, you stick it in this one. Different ones have different ways of inserting the battery. Sometimes the battery's already in there, and you pull a tab out, and it pulls the insulation off a couple little metal pins, and then that activates the battery. Different ways that goes. The reason I kind of like the fire department and emergency services models is they're made to be reused. Okay, these guys do this every day. It's not something where it's kind of left in an office building. It's used, it's expended, and that's that. They're pretty expensive, but when you get them used, they're really cheap. If you get them expended, they're much cheaper. But remember, you're spending, you can spend a couple $100 getting a new battery and getting a new set of pads for it. It's reality that sometimes these things are going to be stolen, and this particular one has a legitimate history, and basically emergency services places will get rid of them after a period of time. There are, break glass for item type thing in higher end office buildings. Hopefully people don't get in the habit of stealing those. On the other hand, more in circulation is a good thing. And we just have to accept the risk that sometimes these things are going to be stolen. And, we're always going to be angry about getting ripped off, but it's part of the risk that goes with the territory. That gets to your security situation in storing these. When somebody's having a heart attack, and it's still leading cause of death in this country, okay, people are wanting to have fast access to their truck guns and their tactical kits and all that kind of stuff, so they can They can be the gun hero guy who jumped in and thwarted an Al-Qaeda or ISIS commando team raiding the shopping mall or schoolyard or something. The reality is a heart attack's much more likely to happen. When I went to a high-end bodyguard course, they told us about a lot of the people who can actually afford and do hire executive bodyguards are in their 80s, and you're expected to have one of these things not far away. It's specifically for the client. It's not like you're going to treat every emergency that comes up. I hate to say it, but that's true. You're going to there's discretion used in who this gets saved for, and because a lot of these guys are in their 80s. Now the good news is you save this guy's life, and he's much more likely to have a heart attack than an assassination attempt. You're set for life. The reward for that is going to be far more than the $1,200 you spent on a brand new one of these machines. And if you're getting paid to hike one of these things around, you probably want to get a new one. If you're new in the security industry, or maybe you're trying to branch out or trying to add to your capabilities, this is something to discuss with clients, especially if there's old folks in a home, old folks who you're expected to be looking out for. And this is one of the value things you can bring along. Now, in the survivalist world, the social circles on that, we talk about who would make it, who doesn't make it, and shit hit the fan. I also have to look at the fact that a lot of my friends are older, and I want to keep them around. Okay, I want to keep them alive. And this is one of those things where if you have some cool old dude around and you want to keep them alive for another round, this is what you're more likely going to need to keep that guy alive than a firearm. Now, if you got a choice between one or the other, you've got your own views on the Second Amendment. I've got mine. They're probably relatively similar. But the other thing is you want to look at what's ready to roll on a day-by-day basis and what the likely threats are that require a timely response. I tell you, if somebody threatens my life, I'm taking names. I'm going to try and follow up on that, and I'll deal with it. If somebody's having a heart attack, a lot of times you don't have that option. You can't talk your way out of it. You can't con your way out of it. You can't threaten your way out of it. You have to jump. You have to take action. And you got to have the equipment to do it. There's no way around it. There isn't. So, if you're a well-heeled prepper, maybe if you're doing things professionally where you're taking responsibility for other people's safety and you're getting paid for it, you got to consider having this type of equipment around.